Sentinel Corporation Security Services, or Sentinel Corp, is a private military company who were hired by Jace Skell after the bombing of Skell Foundation Head Office. Their main job on Auroa? To keep it safe and secure from potential inside and outside threats. However, not long after Cole D. Walker came onto the island to act as Skell's military advisor, the Sentinels, along with Walker's Wolves, joined forces, turned their back on Skell Tech, and rapidly took control of the islands. Sentinel takes over Auroa's main data center and cuts access to the web by severing the ocean bottom cables, and then took charge of all centers with satellite communication. They then seized control of Auroa's only airport tower, while other agents simultaneously locked down the harbour master's office, cutting off all communications with international sea traffic, and effectively trapping everyone on the archipelago. Within an hour of the operation, signal jamming drones swarm the skies, and Ayana Puri broadcasts an alert on all Auroa electronic devices. She informs the populace of Jace Skell's abduction and urges them to comply with Sentinel Corp. She acquires complete control of Skell Tech. 3 hours after the takeover, all defense and surveillance measures are now fully active. The sea around Auroa is heavily monitored, including anti-aircraft missile batteries and Legion interceptor drones, which are deployed all over the islands. The ship USNS CA is destroyed by Legion drones as it attempts to leave the area carrying sensitive information. In response to the ship's sinking, the US Navy establishes a surveillance zone around the Auroa. Long-range reconnaissance aircraft monitor the area alongside a nuclear submarine. A cruiser and 2 destroyers are put on standby 200 nautical miles off Auroa. On the CIA's recommendation, international naval and air authorities prohibit ships and planes from approaching within 300 nautical miles. Several teams of ghosts are dispatched to Auroa, and Operation Greenstone commences. Originally, Skell hired Sentinel under its government contact's recommendation. This contact was CIA Deputy Director of Operations, Peter Miles. What Skell wasn't aware of was Miles' long-standing relationship with Sentinel CEO Trey and Cole D. Walker. As part of the REC team, Walker and Stone ran illegal black op missions for the CIA under Miles' leadership. The Wolves and Sentinel are essentially working for the same party. While Sentinel are highly trained PMCs and Walker's Wolves a bunch of ex-ghosts, the Wolves are treated much more like super soldiers, which means the Sentinel troops are more often tasked with the more mundane jobs, such as going out on patrols or monitoring the barren areas of the desert or swamps. Because of this, even though they basically work for the same people, there is still a certain amount of friction between the groups. Not long after Skell Tech's headquarters on Auroa was bombed, Sentinel Corp issued martial law. Local inhabitants are now required to follow a series of rules or articles while under martial law. Population without any task must stay in their residence or city. Population with task delivered by Sentinel Corp must accomplish this task. It's forbidden to travel in the wild. All people discovered in the wild by Sentinel Corp patrol will be arrested. If you need to travel to accomplish your task, Sentinel vehicles will carry you to your workplace. Helping to identify or capture an outcast is rewarded by 50,000 Skell credits. Helping to find Jace Skell is rewarded by 1 million. Any people helping the outcasts will be arrested and punished. Sentinel Corps members can freely fire weapons in residencies and cities to fight the outcasts. All communications with the rest of the world are blocked during the martial law. All travel outside of the archipelago is forbidden. Unfortunately, Sentinel often abuses their power over the population of Auroa and can often be seen executing a number of workers and other innocent people at Skell outposts. Born and raised in a suburb outside of Memphis, Tennessee, Stone comes from an old Southern family who raised him as a Southern gentleman. Although as a child he was considered a bit wild, the structure and discipline of the military school helped him focus his energy and ambitions. He is a true patriot, and his patriotism will always include a special place in his heart for his Southern heritage. Stone graduated from Virginia Military Institute with a degree in civil engineering, but his first commission was as a PSYOPs officer. After working with him on several occasions, the Ghost recruited Stone, and he joined his highly secretive unit named the Retaliation Team, or RET Team. While in the RET Team, Stone was running illegal Black Ops missions for the CIA, alongside men like Cole D. Walker, who was his platoon leader. Stone rose to the rank of Major, but after 10 years decided not to renew his contract, opting instead to go private. After a short time working with a number of private military corporations, Stone formed his own private military company, Sentinel Corp. He secured an abandoned Russian military camp in Kazakhstan and used it to train his elite soldiers. Through Peter Miles, Stone was contracted to run all security on Auroa. Fond of Southern euphemisms, intelligent and sophisticated, Stone was the kind of man who would smile and shake your hand, while flaunting the knife he'd used to stab you in the back. Never one to shy away from an opportunity to further his own agenda. Beneath the surface of his Southern politeness, Stone is known to be very dangerous. He has a strong appetite for authority, and an equally strong fondness for destruction. He lacks empathy, and he leans heavily towards domination. Those under his command know better than to ever question him, and his superiors thank God every day that he is on their side. While Stone works directly with Walker, he answers to Peter Miles. He has several officers he relies upon. Ilsa Hertzog, the sadistic prison warden, Ian Blake, the manipulative head of the island's secret police, and several others who have been dispatched around the archipelago to take care of those resisting Sentinel Corp. After Walker is killed by NOMAD, Stone, in a phone call with Miles, remarks that he is now in charge of Auroa, and that Miles and his boss don't need to be worried. The youngest of 5 children, born to Johannesburg socialites, Ilsa was always destined to be the unheard voice. Her older siblings were identified from an early age as being exceptional beings in a variety of fields, thus leaving young Ilsa to defend for herself. Small in stature and slower to develop than the rest of her family, she retreated inward to a world of books and fantasy. Overall, she felt ignored, a nobody, a silent observer in the background. And so, because of this, she began to develop an uncanny ability to read people and their behaviours, and therefore she began to imagine a career in psychology. In university, her ideas were solidified, and her desire to understand the human condition grew still. But a series of poor investments by her father left the family broke, outcast, and clouded in scandal. Ilsa was forced to join the military to earn money to continue her studies. It was during her time serving as an intelligence analyst in the military that her skills at manipulation and information extraction was first noticed. While assigned to the Defence Intelligence Division of the South African National Defence Force, Ilsa identified herself as an exceptionally talented interrogator. She quickly warranted prestige from her superiors for her ability to break down even the toughest prisoners. However, over time, her methods became more erratic and more savage, and eventually a series of investigations forced her out of the military. The detail behind her termination of employment was concealed by a supervisor who felt she had a natural gift, and she was offered a position at the famed Ibongweni Correctional Centre, where she continued to hone her craft. It was during her stint as the chief interrogator that she first crossed paths with Cole D. Walker, who was conducting a joint training exercise in detainee operations with the Reckies, South Africa's premier special operations unit. Following on from their first meeting, Walker often called upon her expertise in interrogation while on RET team missions. Many citizens of Auroa could tell you about Ilsa. She is greatly feared throughout the island. Her cruelty is legendary. It is said that anyone sent to her does not return. A loner who usually tries to keep to herself, Ilsa has developed a connection with Rosebud, one of Walker's alpha wolves. I guess you could even go as far to say they are friends. She is loyal to fellow Sentinel Ian Blake and believes wholly in the vision of World 2.0. Ilsa began torturing Skell Technology employees in order to keep them in line, and sickeningly just to see where their breakpoints were. She swiftly traumatized several workers to the point where one of them allied with NOMAD in order to kill her. After NOMAD freed several of Ilsa's prisoners, she began to hunt them down, eventually with the aid of an attack helicopter. She managed to corner the Ghost and her former prisoners, but shortly after the battle ensued, she was killed by NOMAD. Ian Blake is a disgraced former police commissioner. Born and raised in Boston, prominent Irish-American parents, he was always destined to wear a police badge, like his father before him, and the 4 previous generations of Blake men. Never able to quite grasp his own moral code, he regularly found himself abusing his position of power as a police officer to further his own personal agenda. His excessive self-absorption and the bitter rivalry between him and his abusive father left him overly susceptible to a multiple of influences. He successfully made a name for himself early on in his career by racking up a series of big arrests in relation to organised crime and drug trades within Boston. His considerable network of informants and snitches helped to accelerate his career quickly through the ranks of the police department, and in true Blake form, he almost never played fair. He often used his position of power to plant evidence, force civilians to work as informants, and routinely abuse suspects in order to extract information. After the death of 2 teenage boys who turned in a notorious drug dealer, a case was launched against Blake. However, due to his record of high-profile arrests, he was untouchable, and the case was dropped. Interestingly, the dealer the boys had helped to get arrested mysteriously died while in police custody. At 42, Blake was elected to the position of police commissioner after the former in command died in a car accident. He would be the youngest in Boston PD history. Unfortunately for Blake, he would never escape his past. In 2016, he was the subject of an internal affairs investigation into alleged corruption within the department, and a number of former informants came forward to testify. While no criminal charges were brought against him, he was forced to retire in disgrace. Eventually he started his own business, selling high-end surveillance equipment, and it was there that Trey first approached him to work for Sentinel. As the chief intelligence officer, they have worked closely together ever since. Blake still romanticizes himself as a tough, old street cop with refined taste. Expensive suits and top-shelf whiskey are his hallmarks, as is his fixation with Heinrich Müller, chief of the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. Among others, he's known for his vicious temper and is quick to point the finger on anyone but himself. Blake will happily destroy another person's credibility and sabotage their career just for shits and giggles. He truly relishes in bringing those around him to their knees. An incredibly paranoid individual, it is suspected that he keeps intelligence files on everyone on the island, including Stone and other Sentinel executives. Because of his disposition, people rarely ever trust Blake, and therefore does not cultivate many friendships. It's rumoured that he has control of an AI system created by Skell Tech that controls all the surveillance drones simultaneously, creating an inescapable security network. With Ian Blake assigned as Sentinel's chief of surveillance while on Auroa, he superintended over the people and his own troops with an iron fist. Frequently he arrested and even sometimes killed those civilians he deemed to be threats. Blake was also known to severely punish and abuse Sentinel soldiers over the most minute of technical errors. NOMAD eventually hunts down Blake to acquire his biosignature and to shut down the drone surveillance program. While dragging him into the control center, Blake is mortally wounded by Alpha Wolf, Silverback, who is trying to prevent NOMAD from succeeding in shutting down the drone program. NOMAD succeeded in his mission, but is unable to catch Silverback, who managed to escape. He leaves Blake behind to die from his wounds. With Walker and a number of the Sentinel officers having been taken out by the ghosts, it would appear that the military hold on the island is well on its way to being broken. But with Trey alive and Peter Miles still calling the shots from the other side of the planet, this is far from over. Although I have a couple of other groups to cover, like the Outcasts and the Homesteaders, what else would you like to see me cover in Breakpoint? Before I start getting into the ongoing storyline that has been drip-fed to us through the faction missions. Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!